Welcome to Tech Topics brought to you by Cybervenger. We help keep small businesses stay protected and compliant with cutting-edge cybersecurity and IT solutions.
Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Andy. I'm the managing consultant for Cybervenger. Today we are going to go into another of our deep dives into the NIST 800-171 controls. There's 110 of them. Today's control is 3.5.1. It is the first of the identification and authentication family of controls. We just completed the configuration management family of controls in our last video. If we look down here, we can see the name and description of it. So it says we need to identify system users, processes acting on behalf of users, and devices. Really straightforward concept here, which is nice. The idea is you want named users for everybody. You do not want accounting one to be the user that people are using in the accounting department. You don't want any shared users. Same thing with processes. Like let's say you have a backup process, you're running Veeam, and the Veeam service is running under, administrator. You don't want that. You want to have a Veeam backup users. Every process that executes in the background that requires credentials should also have a unique username and permissions that it can be dialed down to what they need without giving them any more than it doesn't need. If you got an automatic process that runs at night, maybe it's some kind of reconciliation in the books that it's a separate process that has to go through, download data, collate it, process it, put it in a database. That service, that Windows service, should have its own credentials for that so it can be identified. The goal here is that if you are looking through the systems, your network systems logs for activity, or there's any trouble you're trying to figure out what could have happened, you want to know what was accessed by what, when. This is for logging, and so this is for intruder detection, and this is for forensics. So we talked a little bit about this kind of concept earlier in under identification and logging. So there's those controls we talked about logging. This one basically makes sure that everyone's using a specific ID, so that when you do log the activities, you can figure out who. That's what we're trying to answer. The question is who, or I suppose what in the case of a service, but a service would still have a user account, therefore kind of be a who. Like an argue semantics here. You get the idea. You don't want to have shared credentials no matter what. This brings up an interesting problem, though, I see all the time of kiosks and such. In the real world, you might have a CNC or a milling job or something that might run for 9 or 10 hours. That goes past a shift. So we have what they would have at some of our customers, they would have a kiosk, or not a kiosk, the right term in this. They have a dedicated machine that runs a CNC machine, and they log into it and they upload the schematics, the byte code to do the CNC, and they'd set it up and they'd oil it and they'd vacuum it out, and they do that throughout their shift. But that same job is continuing to run nonstop, and then their shift ends and they hand off to the next person. That's a little tricky. How do you determine that sort of thing? And I've been wrestling with that too, because the next person who comes in, they're not going to stop the job just so they can log out and log in as them. So, Bob's on day shift and Sally's on night shift. Bob's not going to stop the program, log out so that Sally can log in. You can break the thing. And most manufacturers aren't thinking about this stuff. So the people who built the CNC machine, they're not thinking about that. They would say, just create a CNC1 account and go run with it. And that may very well be what you have to do. Sometimes you have to do that, but you need kind of a compensating control there, or way to comply with that. And what you could do is you could have a logging system where, kind of like a timesheet, and you're saying, hey, Bob's got CNC1 account today, and punches out of here. Sally took over. Sally's now in charge. So we have a way to determine that, okay, yes, account or CNC1 is the account that's being shared, but the ball is being passed in some alternate way so that you can determine who's responsible for the action taken by this account. Another thing that helps is that account might not be a domain account. You probably don't want your CNC computers or your stamping machine computers or any dedicated piece of equipment, a computer that's running a piece of equipment. You probably don't want it on your general network. You don't want it talking to the rest of the systems. That way you don't quite run into this as so much. If it's on its own, Internet of Things VLAN, or maybe your stamping machines VLAN, your custom machines VLAN, however you want to break it up. It makes it easier, and then most of the CUI would be accessed by a specific user at a specific time, and you have a log of it there. a lot of your ERP systems will log and track who's doing what. I think if you're trying to pick a CNC or pick a ERP package, you maybe want something that walks a person through the manufacturing process so that you can log who's doing what activity. That with this, this requirement, the 3.5.1 requirement of being able to identify who's accessing things, can still be served, even though technically you don't have a specific user on that particular machine. And it would matter less because it's not networked. You want to be able to look into your system and a bunch of files are being accessed. You want to know who the heck is accessing those files. And this is important too, not just for trying to pick on an internal person that might be doing a bad thing. Maybe it's not an inside threat, it could be an outside threat. But outside threat's going to need credentials, and we got to figure out whose credentials they broke into. And if you're doing your job right and you're following the rest of the controls about, not giving more permissions than you need, less is more. If you know what account is compromised, you should be able to piece together what the bad guy was able to access. And that is going to help you immensely when you have to report the breach. You could say, okay, well, this particular directory, these set of clients were compromised. They're the only ones we have to notify. The whole rest of the organization, no matter how large, you could conclusively prove that those things weren't touched because it's the only account used. You could save yourself a lot of trouble in reporting. And, of course, just the trouble that, knowing that only a small amount of data was breached rather large. It's not, do or don't. It's a spectrum. A smaller compromise is favorable to a larger compromise. Obviously, you want no compromise, but sometimes you can't stop that. Damage control after an initial breach is very important. And being able to determine who and what process is acting is that's a key to doing that. And speaking of processes, just in case I didn't mention this, Windows services run under a user. Backup exec, Veeam, they're all going to have a user for backups. They should all have their own named user as well. They should never share the administrator account. In fact, nobody should use the administrator account unless something's broken and you're locked out and you need to reset your password. That's another good management practice because that's a shared account. You don't want an administrator. Your IT team shouldn't be doing this. Everybody in your IT team, your consultants, everybody should have their own username and password that they're responsible for, that only they use, and that way you can log and track things better. So that was a bit long, but I think that gets the point across. I just want to make sure people gathered why that's so important. I've always preached this control. This is a control that's a good salt of the earth, real. Yes, we should be doing this. No security theory here or unnecessary redundancy. This is a good, solid control. I applaud this one. Thanks for watching. I will see you all in the next control, and have a good one.
Thanks for watching. We hope this video has provided valuable information to you. Be sure to share this video with other small business owners to spread the word about the importance of cybersecurity. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you want more information about cybersecurity, visit us at www.cybervenger.com.